In this lesson, we're going to consider the idea of price discrimination. It occurs in situations where firms have some market power to set the price. That is, if they can set a higher price and it'll affect the quantity demanded. So it's not usually occurring in purely competitive markets. It's markets which have some monopolistic tendencies or market power. So let's see how this works. First of all, price discrimination by definition occurs when different consumers or groups of consumers are charged different prices for exactly the same good. It's actually very common. You see it all the time. Think about airlines where you fly from one city to another. Usually you can get a lower fare for exactly the same travel if you stay over a Saturday night. Another example is coupons for newspapers. Sometimes newspapers will have coupons. You clip the coupons, and that enables you to get a lower price than people who don't clip the coupons when you go to the grocery store. Trade-ins of cars, another example. If you trade in your car, you usually get an extra lower price on the new car. The dealer will give you a good price on your trade-in. Another example is pharmaceuticals, drugs sold in different countries. You'll see the same drug sold at different prices in different countries. So these are all examples of essentially the same product, whether it's travel between two countries, things you buy in the store, buying cars, or buying drugs, same exact product, but the firm will try to charge different prices in different places or to different people. The reason this occurs is largely because of the idea that the price elasticity of demand can be different for different people. It's really the most important reason why this kind of price discrimination occurs. We can illustrate this in the kind of diagram that we introduced for a monopoly. And this is illustrated in two cases. Over on the left, we have a demand curve and a marginal revenue curve. The marginal revenue curve is below the demand curve, as is generally the case for a firm with monopoly power or market power. We've also drawn in the marginal cost curve, and to make this simple, we've just made the marginal cost curve flat. It makes it easy to see the diagram and compare. Over on the right, we also have a demand curve and a marginal revenue curve and a flat marginal cost curve. The big difference between the two curves is over on the right side, there's a very low price elasticity of demand. And on the left, there's a high price elasticity of demand. Another way to put it, on the left, the consumers are quite sensitive to the price. When the price changes, the quantity demanded changes a lot. That's that demand curve being kind of flat there. So you change the price by a little bit, for example, by that amount, and you see kind of a big change in the quantity demanded. If we go over in this picture, you change it by the same amount, and you see you're moving up over and by a smaller amount. Up is the same distance, and this distance is smaller compared to this difference. Say it one more time. Price move up by that amount there, same amount here, and you can see there's a larger quantity, more sensitive to the price than over in that case. So that's going to generate a different decision for the monopolist. The monopolist over on the left is going to say, oh, these guys are pretty sensitive to my price, so I'm not going to raise my price too much for them. And you can see the profit maximizing price for this monopolist is, as usual, at the intersection of marginal revenue and marginal cost for quantity, and then you get the price at that point. For this monopolist over here, firm with market power, marginal revenue equals marginal cost there, but you get much higher price. So this will generate this concept of a different price for the same good. This could be the same good. It's just the consumers have a different price elasticity. The consumers on the left are quite sensitive to the price. The consumers on the right are not so sensitive. And if a firm can divide up in some way the consumers in this direction, it can actually earn more profits by charging a different price. Now, let's think a little bit about how this could occur in reality. Let's go back to our examples. Consider the Saturday night stayover rule for airlines. So what the airlines are considering is that non-business travelers who don't have to get to the destination, say on a Thursday night or on a Wednesday night, they just want to go visit their relatives. And so they're probably going to be more sensitive to the price. Okay, so in this case, they're going to get, if you like, a lower price if they stay over on a Saturday night. They're more sensitive. On the other hand, the business travelers, how to get there, get to work, get the job done, they're going to be relatively insensitive, and so they'll be able to charge a higher price. And by focusing on the Saturday night, the airlines are able to discriminate between the non-business and the business. Most business people want to get home, they don't want to bother traveling on a Saturday night, so it's a way to discriminate and indeed price discriminate. Coupons, another example. A lot of people who have the time to clip coupons, they have the time to do that. They're probably more price conscious. They don't have, maybe have less money, whatever it happens to be, than others. And so they're getting a lower price. Trade-ins of cars, you could imagine that you're more price sensitive. You're more reluctant to get a new car if the price is high if you already have one. And so by offering an extra low price for a trade-in, the firms are taking advantage of this more price-sensitive consumers compared to others who don't have a car yet. And finally, probably the most interesting one is goods sold in different countries. The exact same product, the exact same pharmaceutical can be charged in different prices if the consumers in some countries are more price-sensitive. If, for example, consumers in Mexico are very sensitive to the price, if the price is too high, they just won't buy it, then most likely the profit-maximizing firm will charge a lower price there. If consumers in the United States or Europe or Canada or Japan are less sensitive to the price, maybe the drug is a smaller part of their budget, they really need to have it for their illness, then they'll charge a higher price there just based on profit maximization grounds. So you can kind of illustrate this a little bit numerically with a little bit of a definition in terms of the price-cost margin. Price-cost margin, by definition, is the difference between the price and marginal cost divided by the price. And of course, if the price is greater than the marginal cost, that represents the market power of the firm. In a purely competitive market, the price would equal marginal cost. There'd be no price-cost margin. This price-cost margin is related to the price elasticity of demand. In particular, the price-cost margin, price minus marginal cost divided by the price, is equal to 1 over the price elasticity of demand. And remember, we say price elasticity of demand, we mentioned in a positive term, so if the quantity declines by 0.5% when the price increases by 1%, we say the elasticity is 0.5. So let's consider an example. Suppose there's a U.S. firm which is selling a product in Mexico and Japan. Suppose it's the same product. Suppose it's a drug. And suppose the elasticity of demand is 1 in Mexico and the elasticity of demand is 0.25 in Japan. So this example, the Mexican consumer is more price sensitive, more sensitive to prices changing. In this case, the price-cost margin, just by using the formula, will be 1 in Mexico and 4 in Japan. So the firm will charge a much lower price in Mexico than in Japan. It's an example of price discrimination, and it's occurring in this example under the assumption that the price elasticity of demand in Mexico is higher than in Japan. So it makes sense, and to make this all work, of course, you have to have certain conditions. It's not always possible to carry this out. And so these are just a list of the conditions. Let's consider them for price discrimination. First of all, you have to have different demands for different consumers. And it might be because they're different countries. It might be because they're older or younger. Sometimes there's age discounts. If you go to the movies and you're over a certain age, you get a lower price. So that's, again, an example of price discrimination. So you have to be able to consider there's different demands. The firm also has to have some market power, has to have some ability to set the price in the market. And third, essential that the firm can somehow segment the market geographically, like Mexico and Japan. Same with the nationality. It could be age, young people, old people. It could be where you work, whether you work for a nonprofit or a profit. All sorts of ways that firms can do this, and they do. And the other and kind of last part of segmenting the market is that it really can be separated. Because if you could basically go buy your drugs in Mexico rather than Japan, then you're getting a good deal. It's much cheaper. So somehow you have to prevent the movements instantaneous. Now Japan and Mexico are far away, so it's kind of hard to arbitrage, if you like. If you're in Japan to go buy in Mexico, you got to get an airplane ticket. It would wipe out the change in price, the price advantage. So there has to be some reasons. Also, sometimes there's a sort of legal impediments. You maybe will restrict the age for certain products. That is a way to age discriminate. You have to have your ID show you're over a certain age. And then as technology changes, we're going to be seeing more and more of this kind of discrimination, I believe, because firms can actually make the products personalized for the individual. You can get, say, ski boots that are designed just for your shoe size, or you describe other products, running shoes that are personalized. And so you're actually able to segment the market even more finely than you can if you just had to think about retirees or seniors buying movie tickets compared to young people. So in many respects, this price discrimination is already quite prevalent in the society. It's part to try to understand why that's the case. There may be other reasons for this, but this is the classic reason that comes out of the idea that the price elasticity of demand can be different for different people, and firms will use that when they charge a higher price for different people. Thank you.